Welcome back. You're watching the RSR TV. Guyana will be celebrating their 50th independence celebration on May the 26th. Guyana gained independence on May the 26th, 1966. And we now continue with former President and now Opposition Leader Barjack Dale at the Town Hall meeting at NARESA Palace. Let's watch.
And that they will give their supporters and people who gave them large sums of money before the election huge tax breaks, etc. Unbelievable, the worst in our history that we have ever seen, a tax break of that fashion with impunity. So I hope that some of you will read a bit more about these issues, because it is out of evidence. I'm not going to come here and just criticize the government without analyzing its policy to tell you why we are concluding the way we are, that they're clueless about managing the economy. The Minister of Finance came to the budget time and he said there are three things basically by implication that will harm our economy. Lower commodity prices, you know, the quantitative easing in the US, they're gonna slow down. The feds here are going to probably start changing that policy. And the third thing is deflation. We suffered from deflation last year. And then they've done nothing in the budget to tackle those three things that will affect us globally. So my belief is that things are going to get seriously worse economically. And a lot of what they have now and still keep going that they're boasting about is the rollover. You hear a lot about, oh, we've cleaned up the city. So where is this money coming from to clean up the city? If you take $1.6 billion back from our children, because they used to get that as a grant from the government, and you spend $500 million in the city to clean it up, then should we praise you for taking the money from the children and spend it in the city? But let me tell you, what they've done, the city council had always been there, always controlled by APNU. They never did what they're doing now. Two things they never did, because we established clear frameworks. They have given up about $2 billion of write-offs without anyone knowing who the write-offs were given to. Under our government, we said this is for arrears in city council, the rates and taxes in the city. We made it clear that they had to have a policy. So if a person owes $10 million, you're writing off 20%, or they owe $5 million, you'd write off 25%, some policy. They negotiated privately with many people. And what has happened is that the party, you have to, if you want a $10 million write-off now, you have to give APNU $1 million, give someone in the city council some money, and then you get an $8 million write-off. That is why they have collected some money in arrears, but how are they going to finance future expenditure? Because the arrears are being collected and spent in a fashion. They've spent $800 million in the city so far on cleaning up. They got some help from the government, but mainly from the city council coffers. But not a single public tender. Not a single public tender. If the PPP spends $20 million without a public tender, that's front page news in the Kaichor. But $800 million spent and not a single public tender. We have asked hundreds of times. We are now putting some questions. We have questions in the parliament to the ministers to say, we'd like to see the basis on which the taxes were written off. And secondly, who won the tenders because there was no tender. We know they can't answer the question for the $800 million spent. So all of this talk about cleaning city, it is an opportunity to grab the taxpayers' money. That is what it's about, this cleaning up of Georgetown. more and more the opportunity to grab it. And it's financed largely from money that's there. So that's on the economy. So we can conclude now, as I said before, that economically we're in for tough time in the future, because the guiding principle of this government is not one that expands wealth in the country. In fact, they keep going after businessmen. You know, we had the anti-money laundering bill, and they never supported it when they had the majority in Parliament. There was one provision that was important to us. We said we'll never give policemen the powers to go into people's homes and raid them under any suspicion without getting a court order. So what they did, they passed the law and they gave policemen of a certain category the right, under a mere suspicion of money laundering, to enter a person's home, search the home, and seize their assets. So let me just give you a scenario. A policeman, like a senior policeman, could walk down the road and he looks at your home, poor home or rich home, and he would say, I believe you're engaged in money laundering. That's all he has to do now. And then come into your home and then search it and seize assets. They have done this to about 60 businessmen that I know of, raiding them at 2, 3 in the morning. These people are fearful about the future of the country. They don't want to invest there anymore. From the time they spend, if they buy a new property, then SOCO raids their home. They set up this unit that we had set up under the police force, SOCO, to go after drug dealers and other people, money launderers. They have moved the authority from the police, this unit under the police, to the office of the president. Harman said, SOCO reports to the office of the president now. So it stops being a technical enforcement arm of the police and a political arm of the state. And then they get instructions, they raid businessmen in front of their families, seize their assets. Many of them don't even want to talk about it. They just let them fetch away their assets. And so what we said is that we have to give the police the powers to investigate money laundering and drug trafficking. But if the police have a suspicion of money laundering, they must go to the court, get a court order from a judge, and then using the court order, search a person's home and effect seizure. That is what we had argued for.
It cannot be a military government ruling. That can never happen.
Yeah, well, exactly. So this is something that is not just that sending a signal, sending a chill through the society, but it's affecting a lot of future investments. None of those businessmen want to invest anymore in the country. Nobody wants to buy a property. I know you're right. A lot of them wanted change too, including some of them who've been raided. Now they understand the true nature of this government. And so all right. Let me finish. You get a chance just now. So this is not just an enforcement thing of the police, but it's destroying business confidence. And what we have now is a lack of confidence in Guyana. And so I expect that investments are going to dry up and create more hardships for people. So let's talk a bit about crime too, because they campaigned on having a better plan to address crime than the PPP, because they said the PPP doesn't know how to deal with crime. We have chief of staff, we have several of them. Granger was in the army, they have Collins was there, Harman in the army, we have a military bunch, and we have an ex-commissioner of police, and we have a better crime plan. So many people believe them because they thought that, well, these are military guys and they know what they're talking about. The country has now concluded that they had one, no plan, then, and they have no plan now to address this situation. And their policies are leading to the emboldening of criminals. So after the elections, after the crime rate expanded and exploded, and it's going to get worse as the economy gets worse too. We heard all sorts of things. Granger saying, I'm working on a crime plan. Then they said they wanted to bring in more horses and dogs. Then they talk about this amnesty for guns, the gun amnesty, which failed too. All of these things. But none of their policies have worked because the things that we left, they have not continued with. We left them, the only thing in this budget, actually they continued with one. There is a $15 million loan that we got from the IDB that before we left office to tackle crime, and that is in the budget. Outside of that loan, with its corresponding measures and policies, there is nothing of any substance in this budget to support the fight against crime. In fact, Ramjatan took away the vehicles from the community policing groups. We had established a lot of community policing groups, giving them some weapons too, and which they lodge at the police station during the day and pick it up at night, but they had vehicles. He took away all the vehicles, etc. So what has happened? Yes, they have no clue about what to do with the crime situation. On the other hand, I recently spoke at a funeral that is, I don't know if you read about it, the two persons who were tragically killed. The woman is 69 years old. She's been a strong supporter of the PPP. She used to drive her tractor, very, very community-oriented. Her husband, 70-something years old. Strong supporters of our party. And they were murdered, basically burnt out. And when I spoke at the funeral, some ministers were there and they were upset with me, and Kaichor News was upset. Said I'm politicizing the funeral, but the family wanted me to speak. So what I said then, and I'm saying here again tonight, is that we had crime under the PPP too. It would be hypocritical for me to blame them totally for all sorts of crime. But there was one thing that was clear about the PPP. One thing, there was no doubt in anyone's mind about what our intentions were. That we stood not on the side of the perpetrators, but on the side of people. That we sent clear signals where we stood. I said to the police one time, and the human rights group criticized me, I said, if when you go to these places, the policemen, when they're killed or shot at, their wives come to see me or their mothers, I said, if people point their guns at you, you have to shoot to kill. I said that as president, and these criminals, and I'm saying it again here today, I was clear about that when you have criminals who are using AK-47s and they have weapons and they terrorize people, they must expect the police to use corresponding force.